All right, it's Stone Roadie Show number 41, action. All righty then. Welcome to the Stone Roadie Show number 41. My name's Craig Reed, the world's most famous roadie and the world's most stone roadie. And this is my co-host, Griff Martin. If you see anything down there that looks like a like and subscribe button, why don't you go ahead and just click on that. We're trying to get our algorithm up by getting 1,000 members. I think we're somewhere around 700 and something now. So yeah, I'd like to start off by making you aware that Ronnie Morris passed away. That's Ronnie Van Zant's nephew. Passed away a couple of days ago, and we're just gonna try to bring you aware of that situation. And we're just gonna start off with I think we're just gonna start off today with some questions and answers, and we're just gonna turn this over to Griff Martin, and let's just start rolling with this. Griff Martin.
All right, yeah, just a couple things to begin with. It's really sad about Ronnie's nephew, and condolences to the family members. And we always hate to see Skynyrd royalty pass away like that. So our best wishes to everybody in the family on that matter. And then we have another thing that we like to discuss concerning Gene Odom. You guys know Gene Odom. He was Ronnie Van Zant's childhood friend and band security all the way up through the plane crash. And Gene was on the plane when it went down and suffered some grave injuries. And he and Ronnie grew up together. He was with Ronnie when Ronnie caught the big bass, and they were best buddies. And Gene is in the process, and a lot of you may already know that he's collecting some money for a monument statue that will be going at the monument there in Gillsburg, Mississippi. So he's already collected a lot of money, and he's almost at the point where they can start forging the statue. But he still needs some more help to finish that little project. So I'm going to give out some information if anybody wants to donate some money to Gene. And one other thing too is if you donate $100, you guys saw that Brandon Miller podcast that we did. He's got a guitar that he built. And it's an Alan Collins replica. And if you give $100 to Gene for this monument project that he has going, Gene will send you a ticket for that drawing, and he'll sign the ticket, Gene Odom. So let me give you the address for that. It's P.O. Box 2162, Inverness, Florida, 34451. That's P.O. Box 2162, Inverness, Florida, 34451. And you want to make the check out to Hardage Giddens Riverside Memorial. That's HARDAGEGIDDENS Riverside Memorial Park. And at the bottom in the notes, put Van Zant Memorial, and get that in a check or a money order right out to Gene. And he'll if it's $100, he'll send you a ticket to that drawing. So we got that out of the way, and good luck to Gene on that. Gene's Facebook has been taken down, and that's why you haven't seen him in a while. So he's working on getting that back up. He's been out of town on a family matter here recently, so a lot of people haven't heard from him. So with that being said, you want to go ahead and start on some questions here, Craig?
Yeah, let's roll with it.
All right. We got quite a few questions I put up a topic here on Facebook, and we got a lot of people that answered. And so this is normally where I take questions, and we also like to take YouTube questions too. This time we're going to get them off of Facebook here. Let me see. James Wester, starting right at the top. Were there any specific things guys in the band asked for, like food and drink and etc.? I remember, Craig, you were telling me something about that Dom Perrier water.
Perrier water, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we were talking about water the other day, and I goes, God, when I started with Lynyrd Skynyrd, we drank Perrier water. It was kind of like a standard thing that's on rock and roll riders. There's always Perrier water around a rock gang, especially me and Artimus. God, that's all we drank was Perrier water. That's the only kind of water I drank for 40 years or something while I was in rock doing the music thing. Yeah,
it's like $4 a bottle now.
Oh, really? Yeah.
What else was on the rider that I know they provided whiskey and stuff like that too, right?
Yeah, beer,
cigarettes.
Yeah, cigarettes, beer. Yeah, I don't. Yeah, from what I understand, not many bands got cigarettes on the rider, but Skinner did. Cigarettes, beer, whiskey.
I remember Artimus one time in an interview said that the promoters always on the rider gave whiskey and cigarettes, and all the guys in Lynyrd Skynyrd thought they had to drink and smoke it all. There's like a pallet full of it. That true,
Dean,
Craig?
Yeah, Dean, back in the old days, Dean normally took charge of all the whiskey and the cigarettes and and divvied him up between everybody.
All right.
Gather up everything that was left after the show and take it back.
Hatsy has a question for you, Craig. I'm sorry, I might have butchered that, Jim. It's SUKATSKI. Did Craig or any of the band members attend Alan's funeral? Rumor has it that Artimus had to go around pleading with others to go, and also to go see him in the hospital in his final days. Was that the truth? Any truth to that?
I was out with Marshall Tucker then, and John Coulter and myself heard about Alan. We were actually down in Jacksonville area, and John Coulter and I used to travel in the truck with each other, and we heard about Alan, and then we went to the hospital, and Larkin was there, and Larkin, he was in critical condition, and Larkin was there, and we went in and seen Alan, and he was just laying there paralyzed, and he had a trach in his throat and stuff, and I was going, man, Alan, what did you do to yourself this time? And he just kind of looked up at me and with a real, like that. And that's when the crash happened. But then when Alan died, he was taken to the hospital from his house. He had an issue, and they took him to the hospital, and he died in the hospital. But no, I was out with Marshall Tucker then, so I didn't get to go to the funeral. But Mike Caruso, Kathy Godsey and I are going to do another Saturday night special here Saturday night. And Mike Caruso was at the time of Alan died, Mike was hanging around with Alan a lot. And Alan actually gave Mike a 57 Stratocaster that apparently Leon gave it to Alan because Leon borrowed some money to buy something, and it was expensive, and Leon never repaid Alan, so Alan gave that guitar to that Stratocaster to Mike Caruso, and he's still got it, and he'll be on the show Saturday night, talking about his memories of Alan and stuff. But yeah, I didn't get to go to the funeral. I would really like to, but I didn't get to go.
Well, Caruso probably have a lot of information about that. So if you tune in Saturday night for the Saturday night special with Craig and Kathy, maybe somebody can
Well,
get.
I don't know if I got around to saying that Mike was a pallbearer in Alan's funeral, and yeah.
He'll know if Artemis was there or not, I guess. Okay, Jim Folds. How did the boys handle the tours overseas without being locked up for an extended period of time? Did Gene keep y'all in line? Are you banned from any hotels as a result? That was a long time ago. I think they forget you by now.
Yeah, that was 50 years ago. Yeah, there was back then all those hotels had keys. I know, because I have them, every one of them.
Yeah, they're not like those cards that you slide in there, those card reader things. They're actual keys.
I got a pretty massive hotel key collection. I think it's larger than the one they had at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. I got a big old pillowcase full of hotel keys.
I imagine you stayed in a few of them though, huh, Craig?
Oh my God, yeah.
Probably at least 1,000.
Oh, I got about 80 pounds of hotel keys, and I get all the big fobs and stuff from Europe and stuff. Yeah. But what was the question about getting locked? Was that in Europe? Was he talking about? Or
Just tours overseas, any tours overseas, not specifically Europe. And he was just wanting to know, did Gene Odom keep everybody straight?
I guess he tried. That's a pretty hard thing to do. Keep all of us straight.
Yeah. I mean, Gene, he's told me some stories about some things that he didn't discriminate over people that were trying to get backstage. He told me a story about Carlos Santana trying to get on stage, and he told him no, and he tried to go around him, so he threw him down the stairs. We'll have to get Gene on here and tell that story about Carlos Santana and how Gene threw him down the stairs. That's one of his better stories that I've heard. Okay, we got a question from Kathy Keeble. She's a gal that went over to Craig's house not too long ago. He took her to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. And Craig, after retiring from the roadie business, what kind of things do you enjoy doing the most? Also, I just want to thank you for being so kind to Savannah, which that's her granddaughter, right, Craig?
Yeah, that's her granddaughter. Yeah,
and you took her to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
Yep.
So
sure
what?
Did,
so what do you like to do in your
times.
spare time? Is what she's asking, Craig.
I'm retired. I don't do anything. I have I'm just glad it's winter time, so I don't have to mow the doggone grass. Man, I have 8 acres, and then I mow some of the neighbors' stuff that they don't mow. So I mow about 15 acres, yeah, and I enjoy that when the winter time comes, so I don't have to mow grass, But yeah, that's mostly what I do in my spare time, is take care of my property here up in Ohio.
Yeah, and you take your dogs to the groomer, and you go. Usually, Craig will tell me some stories about some things that happened to him when he's out on the town, either going to the grocery store. He has quite a few antics. One of these days, we'll have to talk about his antics. He gets in trouble.
Yeah, I have a regimen of things I get into while I'm on my own. Yeah.
I could tell a little story. When I went to visit Craig and John Neal, Craig's good friend, was there, and we went to Craig's class reunion, and so Craig was up there in the reunion, and John and I we wanted to go have a couple beers, and that was over those Portage Lakes or something like that, Craig.
Yeah, it was Pix, I think, is where
Pix
we
was the
were
name of
at.
the place, and
Portage Lakes, yeah.
so we were sitting there, and the bartender, it was a guy, and I said, "Hey," well, he asked, "What were we doing there?" And I said, "Well, I'm up visiting Craig Reed." You know, I said, "You know Craig Reed? Do I know Craig Reed?" He says, "Everybody knows Craig Reed. You know, I mean, when you're walking up and down the road with a rebel flag and a Trump sign and shooting birds at people as they go by on the side of the road." So yeah, so Craig has a little bit of a political sway, I guess, up there in Ohio.
Yeah, people that are amused by my flags. I have always have 3 flags flying down at the end of well, 4 actually, the end of my driveway, and yeah, they're all pretty colorful.
Yeah, and and I when I was there at Craig's house, I saw like 3 or 4 of these signs that said Trump sucks in his closet, where where people were sticking them in his yard and he was having to collect them up. Must be some liberals up there in Ohio.
Yeah, they're scattered around. I don't think there's as many as there used to be.
They try to aggravate Craig, so I think he aggravates them more than they aggravate him.
City council asked me why I do the things I do. Why do you fly those rebel flags? You know, it just irritates people. That's why I do it.
Same reason Craig likes to comment on the fat ladies. Yeah.
Hog style, dog style. Me no give them shit.
Okay, let's get back to the questions. Brian Gibbons. Griff asked Craig what the relationship was like between Al Cooper and the boys. Also, does he remember the now famous event, Ronnie walking Al Cooper to his Bentley and telling him he would call him when he got through the recording of Simple Man? Yeah. I that's a highly publicized story about Al Cooper not liking that song, and then Ronnie telling him, he just needs to leave, and whether they're finished with it. You remember that, Craig?
Oh God, you're gonna have to. Somebody's at the door, and these dogs aren't gonna settle down. Hold on a minute.
Okay. Yeah, so Craig's at the door, and only other thing I can do is go down here and look at some other questions. Here we got what are Alan's kids doing? You never hear about them. I think I can answer that. One of them, I believe, is in North Carolina, and she kind of likes to lay low. And then there's another one I think has some mental issues. Who's she's in some kind of a home, and nobody ever hears from her. But just talking to Gene, his kids, they really, and I know if you go on the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame when they were inducted in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, you'll see one of his daughters. She was really excited about Alan getting that induction into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. So you're back, Craig.
Yeah.
We were talking about the Al Cooper thing, And I answered one question while you were gone for you. So do you remember that thing about Al
Yeah, I
Cooper?
remember. Uh, um, Ronnie walking him out. I mean, that's about all there was. Uh, Al wasn't real enthused about that song,
Did he
and
eventually like it though?
yeah, yeah. After it was done, he liked it. Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, because it's
I
pretty
think he even
popular.
played. I think he even ended up playing organ on it or something.
Yeah.
Or, yeah, I believe so. Yeah.
Well, you were around Al Cooper quite a bit as far as a person, you know. Did you get along with him all right? Was he a pretty cool
Oh
guy?
yeah, yeah. I liked Al. Al was really cool. Yeah,
Yeah.
he'd show up at a lot of shows even after he left the band. He would show up at a bunch of shows in his white Rolls Royce. Mister had, I think the license plate said Mister Big on the front of it, as I recall. Yeah, I liked Al Cooper. He was real cool.
Okay, let me see here. Then we got Brandon Campbell, which a lot of people know Brandon Campbell. He's a pretty knowledgeable guy when it comes to amplifiers and things surrounding Skynyrd technically with their equipment. And he asked, which band had better weed, Skynyrd or Journey?
Journey,
Why
without
is
a
that,
doubt.
Craig?
Herbie Herbert had the best weed I ever smoked. Yeah, I was hallucinating one time in church.
Really?
Herbie would sit there and connect $1 million deals on the road while he was just burning uh, big joints of Northern California skunk weed all day long, and I'd sit in there and just listen to him talk on the phone and smoking with him. I'd be so high. I'd go outside.
Is he still around?
No, he died.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Well, that California skunk weed, I remember hearing about that. As you know, like back in Florida, we had what they called Gainesville Green.
Oh
You know,
yeah, yeah.
remember the Gainesville Green?
Mm. Yeah, Herbie was cool. He had some acid in his safe he had saved up from from he said when he got word that the missiles were coming to to destroy America, he was going to drop that acid. The Russian missiles or whoever.
All right. Another question from Rob Tennis for Craig. How was it working with Bob Burns? Any stories you can tell us about Bob Burns?
Yeah, quite a few. Yeah, he was Bob was the character, yeah, yeah. Um
I mean,
God,
we
I
know
don't know.
about the throwing the cat out the window, you know, we know about that. And, uh, but there was like some things, I guess, that happened in Jacksonville. Um, didn't he get in some kind of an accident where some lady got killed or something? Seemed like it happened on a bridge in Jacksonville. I've heard some stories about that, and he was he could get a little wound up at practice too, from what I understand. Joe Crimp told me a story. I don't want to repeat that because he asked me not to, but uh, Ronnie had to tackle Bob Burns one time for acting up at practice. So I guess Joe Crimp, Joe Crimp used to play drums, and they would ask Joe to sit in sometimes, and I think Bob Burns would get a little jealous of that or whatever, or feel like he was not being picked on. Or but we're going to get Joe Crimp on the show here and talk about. He knows a lot about Bob Burns, so we'll get Joe Crimp on here, and he can tell some stories. Uh, any good stories about Bob Burns that you can think of, Craig?
Well, the ones that stand out are probably the ones we talked about before when he's seen The Exorcist and what Billy put him through and messing with him in the hotel. And, back then we roomed together, so Bob and Billy roomed together, and Billy would be over in his double beds. We had double beds, and or twin or whatever you call them, single beds, doubles, whatever you call them. But he'd lay over there and make noises like he was the exorcist, freak Bob out. After that, yeah, he was pretty messed up after that movie scene.
Did he ever meet her, that actress that played?
Oh yeah, yeah.
She. What did he think
yeah.
about that? I mean, they were teasing him about it, but he met her, so I mean, was he freaked out by that or what?
Well, I don't recall that. No, it was yeah, that was pretty crazy.
Okay, Thomas Snow. Hey Craig, when did Skynyrd start using the mirror ball during Freebird? Also, my 85-year-old mom is a listener of the STONED Roadie show and loves your voice. Could you say hello to her? Her name is Charlene.
Hello, Charlene.
Oh God. Okay.
Charlene.
Chris Kelly asks, why didn't the guys like Ed so much?
Ed was kind of a loner. He just didn't he didn't really click with anybody in the band. It was just, a California guy from, with a bunch of Florida guys. He just he just didn't have that rapport with people on a personal level.
Yeah, I remember in an interview he said he didn't dig the whole violent scene where people were fighting all the time and physically fighting. I used to text Ed sometimes, on Facebook. It'd be like 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning. He would be on Facebook, and I could get him to answer some questions for me. And I asked him one time, did the guys, was it Ronnie's idea alone to bring him into the band, or did the other guys did they want to do it too? And he said no, they didn't really want to do it. It was just exclusively Ronnie. So that's what he told me. I don't know. Maybe anybody else wants to answer that question that knows. Estes might be able to talk about that next time he comes on or something.
I don't know if Mike would or not. I mean, I don't. Well, it's like I wasn't with the band at that time. Ed hired me. And I wasn't around when all that went down.
But he probably, think about it. He's coming from California and he's staying in that hell house in the swamp. I mean, that alone right there, that'll make you feel a little weird. Not to mention, all those guys were rednecks, and a California guy hanging around a bunch of rednecks, I could see where he'd be uncomfortable. So
all the band as far as all the band respected Ed and his talent, and his knowledge of music. Ed was knew more about music, than any of the other guys. They were, more or less self-taught, and which I guess Ed was too. But Ed seemed to know a lot about music theory and stuff, so.
Yeah, and some people say that he never admitted it, but he could read music, but he never admitted it for some reason. Um, Erwin Candlesdorfer. Hey, just wondering if you gentlemen are working on bringing different performers that work closely with Skynyrd and tell them some story, have them tell some interesting stories about Ronnie and company. Yeah, well, I guess we've had quite a few on already, but we haven't
Well,
really gotten a
that
lot of.
that was 50 years ago. I mean,
Yeah.
a lot of the people that we played with and stuff are dead. I mean, seriously. I mean, you know,
Yeah.
uh, all those, that was a long time ago. All those people,
Well, there's people that were around him that quite a bit younger than Ronnie, like Randall Hall. I'm sure he's got quite a few stories. Joe Crimp, he has quite a few stories. There were a lot of people that knew Ronnie, that they were a lot considerably younger than Ronnie. But those are a couple guys that we wouldn't mind getting on here. And we also somebody mentioned about getting Derek Hess. Saw that somewhere in here. Sorry, I can't find your name, but yeah, Derek Hess. I met Derek Hess not too long ago. Really nice guy, and I asked Gene if he thought he would mind if Derek came on the Stone Roadie show, and he said that he absolutely thinks he would, and he can talk about the Rossington Collins band days because he was a drummer during Rossington Collins. So, and you remember Derek, right?
Oh my God, yeah, for
Pretty
sure.
cool guy, good
Yeah,
drummer, great drummer.
Derek's real cool. Yeah,
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 he.
really great drummer. Or Derek's
Oh yeah,
still a good drummer. Yeah.
yeah. He's in a band still drumming. So, and he looks pretty healthy and pretty fit guy. I know he is a regular guy. Just he was helping Jimmy Withers lay tile there for a while for extra money, as far as I know. And I met him at a party, and a really cool guy. So Adam Hartle, did Ronnie smoke marijuana?
Occasionally, not very often. Occasionally, couple times when we were out fishing, I got him a couple hits, but
Yeah. I remember a buddy of mine. We were at the Lynyrd Skynyrd show in Lakeland, which was the show before the plane crash. It's two shows before the plane crash in Lakeland, Florida, at the Lakeland Civic Center. And my buddy Jay Sapp and myself were there together, and I had forgotten it, and Jay reminded me that Ronnie was smoking a joint. And I think it was when they came back from a break or something and threw it over his head, and somebody ran out from the back of the stage and snubbed it out and put it in like a little sucrete box or something. And I mentioned that to Craig, and Craig said, "Yeah, that was probably me."
Yeah, Ronnie would always pick up joints and throw them over Artemis's head. That's where I was the drum roadie back then, so he would just pitch him over the drum
So
riser at
somebody
me.
from the audience would throw a joint up on stage, and Ronnie would take a couple hits and throw it behind him, huh?
Throw it behind over Artemis's head. That's where I was, so I would see it.
All right, here's a pretty cool question. Steve Jones. I'm repeating this question because you were out moving and it never got asked. So when I was in the process of moving, I missed about 3 podcasts, and I guess this got asked, and I never got to it. There's a bunch of nicknames on "Call Me the Breeze" for the hand clapping. Does Craig know who's who? And the names, and he's showing me a photo of it. Wicker, Toby, Cockroach, Moochie, Pummel, Wolfman, Cooter, Mr. Feedback, and Gooshy. Any of those names ring a bell, Craig? And do you remember anything about the hand clapping on "Call Me the Breeze"?
Well, Gucci, I would suppose that's Joe Barnes, I would suppose, because his nickname was Goosh, and Cooter would have been Al Cooper, and Mr. Feedback would have been one of the monitor guys, I would assume, on stage monitor guy or something, and
Wicker would have been Ronnie,
Wicker
right?
was Ronnie, yeah. And I remember that. I was one of the people hand clapping, but I don't know which one of those names I was.
Well, we got Cockroach, Moochie, Pummel, and Wolfman and Cooter. If you know any of those names, those sound
I
familiar.
don't.
Like-
That was a long time ago.
Yeah.
You know, I got brain damage, you know.
Well, there you go. There you have it. There's a few names that he was able to go over to figure it out. So, Steve, I hope that helped some. If Craig thinks about it a little bit more, maybe he can come up with the answers to the rest of them. Mark Harden, if you, Craig, would explain to everyone what Melvin Skywriter was.
Melvin Skywriter, yeah.
Yeah.
I still have some business cards from Melvin Skywriter. Yeah. When after the crash, when the Gary and Alan were trying to come up with a name with a band because they didn't want to use Lynyrd Skynyrd, that was one of the names that we tossed around for them to use, Melvin Skywriter. But I think Bill Graham, actually, one of them people came up with that. That was, right at that period. I think Bill Graham was their original manager, and I think somebody in that organization came up with the term Melvin Skywriter. But yeah, it was a name they came up with, so they didn't have to use Lynyrd Skynyrd. So before they come up with Rossington Collins, yeah.
That was a new one on me. I never heard that before, so that's something I'd never heard of. Oh, and it was Rob Tennis that asked about Derek Hess. Yeah, we're going to work on that, Rob, getting Derek Hess on here. He's pretty cool guy.
Podcast.
I was at a party when I met him, and I got to sit down with him and Randall Hall, and both top-notch guys, both great talents, both toured with Skynyrd royalty. So they got a lot of great stories. Here's your buddy Automotive. Did you solve the mystery of the unknown passenger?
He must be an FBI agent, that's all I know. Drug enforcement. He just disappeared. It's the only explanation. There's no record of his name or anything anywhere. He's the sound man for whoever was doing Freebird the movie, or no, not Freebird the movie. The documentary, I'm sorry, that came, the Pepsi documentary, the film people for the Pepsi documentary. The cameraman is listed, but there's no sound man listed. So my theory is that he was an FBI informant, and that's why he's not listed.
Do you ever remember seeing anybody on the plane you didn't recognize?
Well, the camera people, yeah, the cameraman, and the sound man, but there's no record of the sound man, so that's awful peculiar.
Yeah. And Craig's son, Chad, is a private investigator, and I think he's kind of working on that a little bit. Who is the best driver of the STONED Roadie racing team? Is there a STONED Roadie racing team?
on my simulators in my living room, there's there's two driving simulators side by side, you know. And I think I'm the best driver on the team because I'm the team owner too. But my
All right.
buddy Sammy Catalona thinks he's good at Elduro.
I remember when I
The
got on
dirt
that
track.
simulator when I was at your house, and Craig was saying, you know, no, man, you need to hit the brake, hit the gas. And then he goes, "You suck." You suck, he said. And I was like, well, it took me a little while to get the hang of it. You know, it's not like a real car, but it's pretty close. Okay, James Burton. I'm from Price Hill, Ohio, Hamilton County, and been a huge Skynyrd fan my whole life. What parts of Ohio did Skynyrd see in the 70s other than the main downtown areas, if any? So I guess, you know, when they went through Ohio, they probably played the big towns like Cleveland, or he's asking maybe were there any smaller towns? Of course, when you met them, where were they playing when you met them, Craig?
Kent State University. That's where I met him, and then the show after that was at the Akron auditorium where they used to have wrestling back in the day, and then the Smiling Dog Saloon in Cleveland. They played 3 shows here, but they came out here to my house a couple times and hung out, and I took them all over my area here and showed them around.
Well, there you have it. There's 3 small venues that they played, and they were touring with the Who when you met them. Is that right, Craig?
They had just got off tour with the Who. Yeah, they had just got off tour with the Who, and that was their next 3 shows. Yeah, Kent State, Akron, and Cleveland. Yeah, all small venues.
T.L. Henley. Did any known performing bands try to negotiate players from Lynyrd Skynyrd? In other words, steal members for their band. Didn't AC/DC try to grab Leon?
Yeah, they did. Yeah, I don't know the extent of that recruiting, but yeah, they wanted him to. I think that was just to come play on an album or something. Maybe I'm not sure about that.
Yeah, I know Joe Crimp used to be roommates with Leon. He grew up with Leon, and he told me a little bit about that story. When we get Joe on here, that'd be one of the ones that, and Joe did agree he will come on. So look forward to Joe getting on here and answering questions like that. Okay, let me see. Did Ricky Medlocke ever play guitar in front of the guys back in the day? He is an amazing guitar, and he is amazing on guitar. And I used to listen to Blackfoot a lot, along with Lynyrd Skynyrd. So he used to play drums initially. He played on Lynyrd Skynyrd is actually recorded on the drums. Isn't that right, Craig?
Yeah, he was they had 2 drummers back in the day. And I only remember seeing Ricky at one show that we that the original Lynyrd Skynyrd played. Blackfoot only opened up for us once that I remember, yeah. But that was the only time I was.
Ricky ever come out to Hell House and jam with them or anything like that?
No. Like I said, that was the only. I heard a lot of things about Ricky, but I never met him before. And then we played that one show. I think it was even in Florida where the Blackfoot opened up for Lynyrd Skynyrd, and that was the first time I'd met him. But I'd heard about him, and I knew that Ricky's shorty was Curtis Lowe, and that was Ricky's grandfather and all that. Yeah. I heard all about him, but I just, like I said, that was the only time he was ever around the original band that I was.
And then later on, when you toured with the After the Plane Crash tribute band, you actually went out to Ricky's house and did some boat racing or something, didn't you?
Yeah, we were down at Ricky's, yeah, and we ended up in Fort Myers one time, and we all went over there, and there was a guy over there had it. That was the fastest I was ever in a boat. We went like 110 in a boat. That's pretty fast.
Yeah, Ricky lives in Florida. It's Fort Myers. Is that where he lives?
Fort Myers, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, Jim Cosa. Hey, Griff, ask Craig to tell us the story behind Leon smashing Ed King's bass. I was at the show in New York when this happened. I asked Craig about that earlier, and he didn't know anything about it, but sounded like more about it than Craig does.
I did drums. I did drums back then, so guitars weren't. I don't remember that because guitars weren't my issue. I was a drum guy, and I was probably stoned.
Yeah, and that was 50 years ago. So, okay, let me see. George Festo. A lot of good questions. A lot of questions too. That's great catching up on some of these questions. Craig, was Alan's house ever raided and or searched by the Fuzz or any of the other guys in the band, if you can recall? We know most of their troubles came when they were out in their vehicles, but did it ever follow them back to their homes? I'd imagine being on probation could possibly subject them to regular searches or drug and alcohol testing. Just curious, George Festo asks.
Alan had more than one confrontation down at the end of his driveway where the gates are. And he was having quite a conversation with police that were there. Yeah. But they never went in the house. It was always down at the end of the driveway on the other side of the fence.
and didn't Alan like get in trouble and have to wash police cars?
I think so.
Or was that you?
No, I never washed any police cars.
I think Gene may have told me about Alan getting in trouble, and this is after, Alan is a well-known guitar player and recorded with several albums where he's washing police cars to get out of trouble. So yeah, I remember Gene's got a lot of stories about Alan and the guys, but of course, Alan has more stories, I think, than anybody. That guy was always in trouble.
I had to do community service once or twice, and one of the times I went, I was my thing was down at the Gator Bowl, and so I wore shorts and thought I would go down there and get a tan, and they had me up scraping seat numbers off the seats with a razor blade, so I had on shorts, and I think they sent me home because I had shorts on, but then I come back the next time and I had long pants, but I had bell bottoms on it. So when I got out there working, I took the bell bottoms and rolled them up over past my knees and stuff, and took my shirt off. And it was a bad mistake, man. They're in there with those aluminum bench chairs and that sun coming down. I got a pretty serious sunburn.
Yeah, you guys I think you spent the night overnight in jail a few times, just taking up for the band, like pretending like it was you.
I got arrested once at least for lying at the scene of an accident where Alan was driving, and I told him I was driving.
Yeah, because Alan's on tour, and if Alan gets thrown in jail, there goes the end. That's the end of the tour. So Craig had to take the hit for it, and I think
Alan and I ended up in jail twice together. I believe it was twice. Might have been 3 times. I don't remember.
Did you ever go to jail with Ronnie?
No, Chuck Flowers did.
Yeah.
That was the
that
night
was when Ed King got
left. Yeah, because Ronnie and Chuck got thrown in jail, and then
that was Ed's guitar tech.
Chuck was Ed's guitar roadie, and because Chuck was in jail, Ed didn't get his strings changed, and then I think that's what the confrontation between Ed and Ronnie was about, because he broke a string, and I don't know, Ed didn't change his own strings or whatever.
Is that when Ed quit?
I think that was the same night. Yeah. Ed broke a couple of strings, and Ronnie got pissed off. And
there was a guy, I think it might have been on YouTube, and he was asking about Chuck Flowers, and wanted to know because it was in an article that I had posted. If you want to tell the story about Chuck Flowers real quick, maybe that guy.
Well, yeah, it was during the Rossington Collins band thing, and the Rossington Collins band, and Chuck was the guitar roadie for Lynyrd Skynyrd, him and Raymond Watkins, and we all went to Peter Rudge's office, and Chuck wanted Ronnie to give him a raise, triple what we were actually making, and demanded it. And Chuck and Raymond kind of went together and said, well, they can't fire us both. I'm the guitar roadie, you're the drum roadie. We can't fire us both. So if we stick together, they'll have to give us a raise, So Chuck went in there and demanded triple the money. And from what I remember, Ronnie came within $15 of tripling Chuck's salary, and Chuck said, another $15 and you got a deal. And Ronnie said, just get the hell out of here, And then he said, anybody else? And Raymond said, well, I kind of told Raymond, we kind of were going to stick together, and said, well, you hit the door too. Anybody else? And at that point, it was just me and Kevin sitting there. And so Ronnie gave me the raise for all of them. But I had to do I was a stage manager then. And Ronnie said, well, I know you can do drums. Can you do guitars? And I said, well, yeah, I think I can, And he said, well, okay, you do guitars, and I'll give you Chuck's raises, and I'll give Chuck a raise and give it to you, and then I'm going to give Raymond the same raise, and since he's not here, I'll give it to you, and then I'll give you the same raise I gave them. So yeah, I made pretty good money there for a month while I could do it, but I couldn't do everything, for a long term. So then we had to hire other people. Whatever
happened to Chuck Flowers?
He killed himself with the gun, the 30-30 rifle that Ronnie actually gave him. There was a party for Rossington Collins, and Chuck, when he left, he went home and shot himself in the head. It actually blew his head off.
Yeah, that was the
30-30 rifle. And then Raymond went over and found him, and Raymond was telling me that he found parts of Chuck's head in the closet, just all over. I mean, it literally blew the top of his head off.
What was the reason for him doing that? Did they figure out?
He was depressed. He was really after he left the band, he was really disgusted with himself that he did what he did and got fired. You know, he didn't see that coming, and yeah, he was just so distraught over the whole thing, he killed himself. In my opinion, you know.
Yeah, there somebody when I posted that Peter Rudge article, and somebody had asked because it mentioned somebody killing themselves that was a roadie, and so I hope that answered that question for you, whoever that was that asked that question. That was I believe, a YouTube question. Wayne Mulhern, can you ask Craig, did he ever come to Australia for business or pleasure, and what did he think of the place?
I was in Australia with Foreigner. I loved Australia. It was pretty cool. Yeah. I played tennis. I don't remember the name of that place where they have the tennis place where you can play on clay and grass and a regular court. I don't remember the name of the place, but yeah, I played on clay and grass. It was pretty cool. Can't remember the name of the place.
So you didn't go to Skynyrd never went to Australia?
I think they went, but not when I was with them. Yeah, we with Foreigner. We flew from Frankfurt, Germany to Melbourne, Australia, and it was like 34 hours in the air. And we crossed the date line, so we left and got there the same day, but it was 38 hours later or something like that. It was crazy.
What would you say is like the coolest place you ever went? Not necessarily with Lynyrd Skynyrd, but with all the bands that you worked with. What's most memorable for you, Craig?
Oh my gosh, there was, I don't know, there's Germany, going around Germany, and a lot of towns in Germany where we bombed them pretty good. There's like scale models of the city before we bombed them and then afterward. It's pretty, we tore the hell out of some of those places over there, yeah. But I don't know, Japan was really cool, and Germany, Holland, they were all cool. I wouldn't want to live anywhere over there, but it was just different being in those other places. But Hawaii was the most impressive to me, I guess. I was in Hawaii about 6 times. It's a pretty cool place, I wouldn't want to go there now. I don't think it's as cool as it used to be.
Yeah, back then I imagine Hawaii was. When I was in Hawaii, I was helping this lady with her car, and she told me the reason she left California because it was getting too crowded, and she said Hawaii was more like California was back in the '60s, so that she was getting rid of that whole West Coast crowd and trying to, I guess, get back to her roots, and Hawaii was the closest she could get to it. So, Hawaii's cool.
Everybody was really impressed with Hawaii in the original Lynyrd Skynyrd when we first went there, and then we went home, and then we all went back to Hawaii for like 2 weeks. And the band paid for everything, and we all had our own individual condos on the beach in Maui, and we were there for a couple weeks, and we all had rented cars and whatever we wanted. It was really cool.
So it was a vacation. There wasn't.
Took a family vacation. Everybody just took their families. There's pictures. I took a lot of pictures of luau's and stuff. You'll see a lot of pictures that I took of ARTIMUS and Kathy, or Alan and Kathy and Amy at these luau's and stuff. I took most of those pictures, but we had
one thing that we need to mention before we go, because that's the end of the questions. and I had talked to Sharon King on email, and she was looking for some pictures from Craig, and Craig called her. Did we talk about your conversation with Sharon King yet?
No, her and I talked for quite a while, and I told her, I said, that I didn't have a lot of pictures of Ed, because at that time I hadn't gotten my cameras yet, because that was Ed was gone before we went to Japan, and we all bought the cameras. When I bought my cameras is when Steve and Cassie and Alan and everybody bought cameras. I bought cameras at the same time, so that was after Ed had left. And she said, well, she really didn't care if they were pictures of Gary. She'd really like to have some pictures of Gary and Alan and Steve and everybody, not just and Ronnie, and not just Ed. But yeah, I've been looking around for pictures, and I think I found one of Alan that's never been seen that I took, that I put away. I need to call her and
for people that are wanting to know, Sharon, Ed King's wife, and she's working on getting Ed's book that he wrote. And a lot of people are saying, well, where's she at with that book? Well, that's what she's dealing with. She's trying to get legal rights to some pictures and things. So the book is in work, and it's going to be coming out. It's going to be a great book. And Sharon's just working on the pictures for that, and Craig's trying to help her out with it. So if you're listening, Sharon, he's working on it.
We've all been wondering about that book, and I guess she's just dealing with logistics on doing it, because we all can see how difficult it is sometimes for somebody to do something that involves a film or a book about the band. It ends up in litigation. So she's trying to avoid all that.
Yeah, it seems like there's always somebody suing somebody, or somebody's pissed off about something having to do, within the Lynyrd Skynyrd circle. It's pretty complicated. There's a lot of turmoil and arguments and things like that. It's pretty sad, that happens. But when you get close with people like that, and over a period of years, and people get their feelings hurt, with all bands, I guess that's what's happening. But with Lynyrd Skynyrd, for me, I think it's probably worse with Lynyrd Skynyrd than any other band I've ever seen.
Yeah, their excuse is that they don't want anybody to come out to foil the legend of Lynyrd Skynyrd. And I think every time they do, they just raise the controversy. And when you raise the controversy, you raise the whole image of the whole situation. And every time that happens, they just seem to get more popular. It's just crazy. Yeah. That band has been gone for 50 years, and there's still people getting tattoos of Lynyrd Skynyrd.
Yeah, you kind of wonder, what would Ronnie think, if he was still alive? I think Ronnie would straighten a lot of this crap out, I mean, if he's still alive, he probably jerk a knot in somebody's head.
It's hard to say.
Yeah. Okay, Craig, that's it on the questions. You got anything else?
No, I don't have anything else. So might as well just wrap this one up, I reckon.
Yeah, a lot of great questions. Appreciate the questions, and then we're going to work on bringing a guest on. We got a couple people that we're looking at, so stand by for some good guests. But every now and then, Craig likes to just come on there, he and I, and answer a bunch of questions. And that's what we did for you here today. So you ready to wrap it up, Craig?
I'm ready to wrap it up. So that's the end of podcast number 41. of the Stone Roadie show with me, the world's famous Craig Reed, the Stone Roadie, and Griff Martin, the retired rocket scientist. And we're gonna call that number 41, and that's a wrap.
See you next time.
And I got my little thingy right here this time. Let me see. All
Later.
right. Here we go. Later.